This is Major Ocelot, and you're watching the Codec.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Daily here from Nation Fusion, and today we are back with another episode of the Codec. This time featuring Josh Keaton. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for joining us. We're also joined today by our co-host, Corrupt Ronan. Alex, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, man. I know people are gonna be wondering, like, why is he wearing a hoodie today? Let's put it this way: your boy needs a haircut. Bad. So let's put it this way: it's probably best to not put that on full display. That's all I'm gonna say.
I like it.
But yeah,
those of you that are good with Photoshop, give him a haircut.
somebody photoshopped the Metal Gear Solid 3 croc cap on my head a long time ago in one of my pictures, and that was something else, man.
I like it.
Yeah. Anyways, I want to thank Josh for joining us once again for another interview on the Codec as well. It's been a while, but we're good. It's always good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, man. It's definitely been a minute.
Yeah.
It was like 6 years.
Almost. Yep, that's we were talking about that just before we started. I went back and looked at our old interviews, seen some of the questions we asked last time, that kind of thing. We were our show was super new back then too, so it's good to kind of get back here with some good.
Jan was on it too, and
yeah. He's still around. He actually here's the come up story that everybody's been waiting for. Yang is actually a full-time voice actor now, and he is.
I know this. Yeah.
Landing some big titles and stuff. So hopefully he'll have some time to jump back on with us every once in a while. But so everybody's doing pretty good. We took a little hiatus for a little while. I had an injury, kept me out for about a year and a half or so. Well, thank you. As soon as I was better, though, I had to come back. Ronan or Alex came back with me, and we started off with a Jen Taylor and Steve Downs as one of our opening interviews. So it was fun to kind of get back in it. I knew we had to get back with you, Josh. We haven't talked to you again in like 6 years, man. You've been busy.
I've been very busy. Yeah,
we got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. For those of our viewers who might not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you grew up and how you got into voice acting.
Well, I'm an actor, first and foremost. Voice acting has been something that I focused on, I guess, now for the past, like almost 20 years now. I mean, I've been doing it longer than 20 years, but in terms of like being more of a sole focus, it's been about
right.
That's insane, man. I don't know where the time goes.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Southern California. In a little suburb outside of Los Angeles, and I was a child actor. Got into doing like commercials and stuff, and kind of everything that you do when you're just kind of starting out. Did extra work, did commercials, did plays, did things like that, and just kind of grew up in the business that way. And then I did like guest stuff in independent films,
right.
Teenage years, and I was in a boy band in like the late 90s or 2000s.
Very cool. Didn't know that. I think we missed that topic last time.
I did that, and then what else? And then went back to doing on-camera acting, and then there was like this big writer's strike that happened where a lot of the work just kind of dried up for people who weren't celebrities. But at the same time, I started getting a lot of work in voiceover, which wasn't affected by the writer's strike. This was just an on-camera strike. And so really kind of started doing a lot more work there and just started focusing on that.
Very cool. What for you was kind of like the aha moment for voice acting? Obviously, like you said, you did a lot of stuff, cameras, movies, those kind of things. For you, what was your kind of like, all right, this is viable for me to do, full time for voice acting? Was it a game or was it a show? Because in addition to the games, we mainly focus games here on the Codec, but you have been in a ton of TV shows as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, to be honest, there wasn't really an aha moment where I looked at voice acting as like the only thing, because up until I'd say probably my 20s, it was just kind of part of everything else that I did, I just kind of did entertainment as just its own thing. And that's pretty much how I made my living, like whether it be, singing or on-camera acting or voiceover. It was just, I mean, in the entertainment industry, especially, you kind of look at it like, you kind of look at it like quantity over anything. Like if you're trying to,
yeah, that's fair.
You just kind of got to take the work where you can get it. And so it didn't really matter to me where that work came from. Whether, if I was singing, awesome. If I was, doing something on a TV show, awesome. If I'm in a video game, awesome. Like it was all kind of going into that same bucket. And so I would say probably, to be honest, I want to say it was probably Green Lantern.
Okay.
Because
when I thought, right?
When I played Young Hercules, I was about the age of Young Hercules. So physically, I was like a similar type. When I played Spider-Man, physically, I was a similar type. Green Lantern, like, dude's chest is like this, and like however many. And I was like, I would never get cast to play this dude on camera.
Right.
Here I am playing this dude.
Yeah.
And that was just such a cool thing to me. Like the fact that I was very easily able to play against type, and I just had to make my voice sound different, and that's it.
Okay.
And that was something that was super cool to me because, there's just so much of that. Like it's changed a lot. There's a lot more diversity in on-camera acting now. But when I was growing up in the business, like there was a very, very distinct effort made by productions to like pigeonhole you, where it was like if you were anything but blonde hair and blue eye, you were not all American, and that's actually how you cast these parts. Like there's a thing called the breakdown. So like the breakdown is what production companies will use to cast things. They'll kind of put out the list of everything that they're casting, character descriptions, names. And send that out to the agents, and the agents will kind of look through their roster of clients and see who they have that kind of matches that, and then send in whoever they feel for which part. Well, like the code word for like the blonde hair, blue eyed guy was like all American.
Gotcha.
And if ethnic, you were not that guy. You would, be relegated to like playing like the friend or like some other person, if at all. And so I would always go in for these parts, and as soon as I'd walk in, it'd be like, "What's your background?" I'd be like, "Well, guess I'm not getting that one."
Yeah,
That's it. That's a wrap.
On the other side, like when I would audition for Latino roles, because I'm half Peruvian, I would go in and they'd be like, "Are you Latino?" And I'd be like, "Yeah."
Do you need me to be?
I was like, "Have you been anywhere in the world where like Latino people are? There's all kinds of people."
Right.
And it's like I was constantly stuck in this place as a mixed person where I wasn't like Caucasian enough for the Caucasian roles, and I wasn't Latino looking enough for like the Latino roles. So it was like, that was literally the story of my entire early career, was just frustrated at not being enough of this for this, but not being enough for that.
Yeah, it's not. That doesn't sound fun to deal with.
Yeah, there's at some end, there's people that are completely gatekeeping ethnicity and like what you have to look like in order to qualify as this. Right. That sucked, and there was really none of that in voiceover. It's like, well, can you sound like the role? Okay.
Yeah, right. There you go.
And now, that was a very freeing thing for me as an actor. So yeah, that's I want to say it was Green Lantern, because again, it's nothing that I would ever have been.
A great role though, too. You hear about
it was a great show. It was a great show.
You see these superheroes and characters that you've played as a kid, and now you're getting to be them. It's pretty a cool thing there. Ronan, do you have the next question, sir?
Yeah. So okay, I gotta ask. You touched on Green Lantern, so I gotta ask: are you a Marvel guy or a DC?
Oh
guy?
God,
there we go.
Oh, see, I can't get into these rivalries because I like stories no matter where they come from, and great stuff on both sides. I just watched the Batman last night with my wife. Freaking amazing movie! Amazing movie.
I'm hearing good things about that one.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, man.
It's fantastic. Robert Pattinson is a great Batman. He's a great. And I'm proud of him, man, because like he broke loose of the Twilight.
Yeah.
He broke free of it. He broke free of it, and he did it in a big way. And that, like, people are going to remember him as Batman now. Like he's great.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear.
Selena Kyle is GOAT, dude. She's GOAT. Yeah. She's amazing. She's amazing. Like everything. There was not one bad performance in that movie. Like, not one.
I agree.
I didn't even recognize Colin Farrell. Like, Colin Farrell is the Penguin?
Yeah.
What? I didn't even recognize it until I saw the name roll by in the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was when I was like, wait, what?
Oh, that's yeah.
I had to like look up his name because it's been a while since I've seen him in anything. So first I'm like, am I remembering the same guy?
Was that the dude in the movie? Like what? Yeah.
I had to look him up, and I looked him up in IMDb, and it was like, this is Colin Farrell. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Great movie. But yeah, I mean, like I can't get caught up in the rivalries. Like as long as they come from anywhere. Like, look, I kind of tie it back to car stuff. You know, my first car, I had a Ford Mustang, and there was the Mustang Chevy rivalry, and it's like, they're both cool cars. And then like later on, I had a Mercedes, and like there was the Mercedes BMW rivalry, and I'm like, great cars. And now it's like I have a Tesla. And then now there's like people that are saying, oh, you know, the Porsche, the new Porsche is better. And I'm like, well, it's like, I'm like, hey, there's healthy competition. Healthy competition is what makes
that's what you need. Yeah.
Step up the game,
Absolutely.
everything better. You know, if there was just one, then you know, not to say it would be stagnant, because there's within each universe, within each Marvel and DC universe, there's tons of different properties and story.
Right.
But I mean, you know, when there's a little bit of that healthy competition, it's good. You know, it just everybody up their game, and as somebody who is into comics and somebody who is into comic culture and geek culture and stories, like it's just more for me to consume. So I'm happy, man. I can't really.
Oh, no, I'm actually glad to hear you say that, because I think healthy competition actually it breeds innovation and stuff like that. So I'm 100% on that. And based on the rules you've done, I can tell.
Just because I really like Marvel, I'm going to say, oh, I'm not going to watch the Batman because DC missed out on a great movie. Like,
right. I wish I could have heard these praises for the Resident Evil movie. I'm not hearing very good things about that.
You're not. Listen, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
I'm behind on my movies. I need to catch Batman. I want to catch Resident Evil. It's only $5 on Redbox right now. That's not good.
I'll just say your money will be well spent watching Batman instead.
Okay, fair enough.
Really good. Really good.
I want to also talk about some of the newer stuff that you've been doing. I kind of joined in in the back end talk before we went live. You guys were talking a little bit about Horizon. So you get to voice a character in the new Horizon game, which is, just on the next level of storytelling. These games are coming out, and they're building all of these characters, and you can see like people really starting to fall in love with the idea of video game characters moving from one game to the next game. And we saw some of that with, Metal Gear and some of the other popular, titles that you've been in. But you got to voice a character in Horizon. Tell me what it's like working in 2021, 2022 as a voice actor doing, big games like this. Is it back to normal? Are we still doing, COVID restrictions from home? Has it changed the industry?
That was done before COVID. So that Horizon Zero West was done on a mocap stage at Sony. And so everybody, was working face to face. Everybody was like, this was before all of that happened. So, so that was pretty normal. That being said, COVID has definitely changed things. I remember when everything when all the restrictions first started, everything shut down. Yeah. Like that was some weird times, everybody was wiping down their mail and like washing their groceries. Stuff would come out, and I'd like put the boxes out in the sun for like a day. Like it was nobody knew it was
down with Lysol and stuff like that.
You can bleach.
So I gotta ask you. You mentioned the Sony stage. We just had an interview with Matthew Watterson, another great voice actor who played a role in The Order 1886, and he told us about this Sony stage that you're talking about. Tell me what it's like working on something, like that in the mocap booth, as maybe compared to. I'm assuming like
it's not a booth; it's a massive
warehouse.
It's like a warehouse. It's a big stage, white walls, white ceiling. There's this kind of like like these Tinker Toy framing that kind of goes all around, and they have cameras, basically these mocap cameras, pretty much all around you, and there's screens basically on every side of the room, and on those screens you can kind of see the wireframe. And you can see kind of your character within that volume. And it updates in real time. So it's kind of like The Simpsons episode with Animotion, where he's wearing the suit and he could actually like see himself like that's how it is now. So you can basically see kind of like a loosely rendered approximation of where you're going to be at. And you could see a loosely rendered version of your character. And every generation, it kind of gets a little bit better. Because like the first mocap game that I ever did was Mad Max. And I played a character named Jeet in that game.
Yeah, we talked about Jeet. I love that character.
Yeah, it was a super fun character. And basically with that was kind of in the beginning or towards the beginning of mocap, where you would film the whole day and you wouldn't even know if you got the footage until like the end of the day or the next day, because basically what would happen is they would have to take all of the data from the drives and put it into the computer and just search it to see if it was, viable footage. Yeah. Like there was no pre-visualization. There was no like, you wouldn't know if you got the take. You just wouldn't. And so then the next mocap thing that I did was NAC. And on NAC, it was a little bit better. On NAC, you actually were able to kind of play back. And so you weren't actually playing back the mocap data. They would be filming with like a traditional camera as well. Okay. And then they would kind of be able to tell by comparing the two things, whether or not they got it. When I worked on NAC 2, it was even better. Like that time you could actually see hand motion on the pre-visualization. It was just so much better. And then that was kind of how it was for Spider-Man as well. I was Electro in the Spider-Man PS4 game. And for that, it was basically all three of those games, NAC 1, 2, and Spider-Man, and then Horizon Zero West, we all did on the same Sony stage. So, or one of the two. There's basically two identical stages right next to each other. I just call it the Sony stage because
that's fair.
Looking exactly the same.
We've heard some stories about just how impressive the setup is there.
Yeah, it's a big setup, and I love working that way because it really is like it's like doing like theater. It's like doing theater in the round type stuff where you can basically move how you would in real life. You can get up in somebody's face like you would in real life. Like it's not. You can overlap dialogue like you do in real life. Like the fact that you were just laughing and reacting to something that I was saying. You couldn't really do that in voiceover. Right. You would have to give space in between for them to be able to edit that.
Right.
You don't have to do that on camera. You don't have to do it with this. Like it's much more true to real life in terms of the way the dynamic plays out, which is a really, really fun way to work. And after a while, you don't even really see the same way. Like we were talking earlier about Minecraft, how like after a while, I don't necessarily see that it's just blocks. Like I tend to kind of that it all blends together, and I tend to see the world as like my mind fills in the rest. Yeah, it's kind of the same way. Like you forget that you're staring at somebody wearing a suit covered with balls, and you just kind of you're just there. You're in the moment.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds like it. We heard one other thing from Mr. Watterson is that you got to go in clean shaven.
Yes, you do. Because
I couldn't do it, man. Yeah. I couldn't do it. I declined a job offer where I live because they were like, "Yeah, I cut the beard," and I was like, "All right, I got to find another place to work, I guess." More power to you. Yeah. Awesome. Very, very, very cool. It sounds like a lot.
Maybe one day they'll be able to, like, the same way they put the balls on the they'll be able to, like.
That's what we were talking about that. We said whoever figures that out is gonna ride that train to the bank.
They're gonna be rich at this point.
Well, I mean, it does change the shape of your face on camera, so it's like, look, eventually the technology is going to get to a place where they're just going to be able to map it out. Maybe you'll have to shave once. Maybe you'll have to shave so they map out your face, and then then the computer can basically fill in the rest, even if you have a beard. Like, the way technology is going right now, it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. That's funny that you mentioned that because that's what we were talking about. Is Mr. Watterson's got a pretty big beard, and they said he had to shave it off to do the mocap, and then they just gave him a beard in the game right after anyway. So that's about how it works out. Rhoda, you got the next question, sir.
Yeah. So speaking of Horizon.
One thing though, so going back to what we were talking about before, you were asking how the industry changed because of COVID. Oh, right. Basically, everything shut down. So there were no mocap games. There were, they didn't even know how they were going to do just recording at all. Like all on-camera production shut down completely, like 100%. and they
It's
weren't
good you
sure.
got that done before, right?
Yeah.
You know, you'd have been in a bad place.
Exactly. I mean, like even with like World of Warcraft, like a lot of that production shut down for
Yeah.
Shadowlands because they had no way, they had no idea how they were going to do anything. Like they have a mocap team that they would use to do cinematics. They had a lot of other things that had to completely get shut down because of COVID. And then even like studio records stopped as well, and they weren't sure how they were going to do it because not everybody had a booth at home. Like that
Right.
was broadcast quality. Like I have a booth, I've had one for over 10 years, but you know, at that time, most voiceover actors did not have a booth. And like if they had any place to audition, it was like maybe a corner in their closet that, you know, sounded okay for auditions, but you know, it didn't keep out the noise from like the gardener or like
Yeah.
kids screaming or whatever, you know. So like it wasn't broadcast quality.
Right.
They might not have had a broadcast quality mic or a setup or anything. And there was a very, very there was a period of time where everybody basically had to immediately get a booth if they wanted to work because everything switched to remote records. Everything switched to
Crazy.
Zoom with a thing called Source Connect, which is like a high quality Skype, where they would basically coordinate the sessions that way.
Yeah.
And to some extent, it's stayed that way. Like I've been going back and doing more in-person sessions now that a lot of the restrictions have been lifted and everything kind of seems to be leveling off.
Right.
Unless there's some other variant that happens and we go back into lockdown again. But until then, you know, like I've been doing some in-person records, but I'd still say about 70%, almost 80% of the work that I do is still from here, still from home, still here. And I don't think that that's necessarily going to change back. I mean,
Yeah.
it costs them less money and it's a lot easier to schedule.
Right.
We're working from home. So
Yeah.
Do you find it that it's mainly like the bigger budget productions that are having you come back, or are you seeing
not
Yeah,
even
come-
necessarily like I think it depends. Like certain productions want to have a certain sound.
Okay.
Certain productions might have like I'm working on a game right now that I can't talk about, but I'm basically having to do a lot of like dialogue replacement to picture.
Okay.
So for that kind of stuff, I guess they want me in the booth, even though I have the capability to do ADR here.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I can I have a screen in my booth. I can watch stuff and do all that. It might just be that they have a certain sound that they want to keep
Okay.
consistent
Yeah.
with all the other
That makes
actors, so
sense.
they want them kind of recorded out of the same place.
Mhm.
But it's also a big budget game, so they're able to do that.
Right.
But I've also done other big budget games where it was all just from here. So
Yeah.
I think it really just at this point, enough people have gotten broadcast quality booths that it's kind of a wash. Like
Right.
90% of the time, like they're going to be able to get just as good quality audio from somebody's home booth. So if it makes them easier to schedule, awesome. Otherwise, if they really have a sound they're after, they'll have you come in.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's kind of crazy because, like, speaking of the pandemic, I've seen a lot of voice actors that I follow, like, they had to make their own booths and stuff like that for recording and get their own equipment. So, yeah, it definitely has changed the dynamic. But I guess to follow up on that, my question is like, how is that has that had any effect on sort of the, I guess, the chemistry between characters, you know, in sequences where you're interacting or, you know, having a conversation with another character? Does that change a little bit of the feel or the cadence in conversation when you're trying to have that dialogue? Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely does, because a lot of the times you're not, like, basically before the pandemic, we all used to record kind of like a radio play where everybody was there. So they would try to have a full cast record and everybody was there. So, like, you know, you get in and there's the energy of everybody being in the room, and you know, everybody's just screwing around between takes and all of that. There's just a different energy.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, you're acting face to face with everybody. So, you know, even though they're across the room, you're still directing your performance at them. You're still seeing them. You're still looking at them in the eye. You're still kind of having those moments. And when they did pandemic recording, a lot of the times they would basically just have you recording by yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, you'd be reading with your voice director, who, you know, most voice directors can act and can, you know, supply the performance. But there's a difference because it's not the character that you're used to recording with. You know, their interpretation might be different than the other one, and so there is a difference. However, there was a show that I did, hasn't come out yet, hasn't even, I don't think, been announced, so I can't talk about it. But there is a show that I did where we all did a group record on Zoom, and we were all recording locally. So this was kind of a gamble because, not everybody was super tech savvy. Everybody was still kind of learning.
Yeah.
So there was always the chance that the recording on their end wasn't going to be right. But they did a lot of tests. I don't think we had any problems. I think everything came out fine. But we were recording locally, but we were having the session on Zoom. So because everybody was recording all of their stuff in their own isolated booths, and because everybody was on Zoom, we were actually able to face, because you're right at your camera, you're looking right at your camera, but you also have the person right there on the screen, really close up, and you could act out a scene with them, and you could have all of those moments that we were just talking about that you couldn't have before because you have to leave in the edit space. You would have all those moments, all those sighs, all those reactions, all of those false starts and all of the things that just happen in normal conversation. And they were able to save it because we were all recorded in our own separate booths, so none of the audio from the other person that was in the scene was bleeding over into ours. So in that sense, it worked out really well. I definitely think that there is a way to do those kind of group records where it feels as though everybody's in the same room, but still virtual.
Gotcha.
I think that the more we are this way, the better the technology is going to get.
Yeah.
It's going to evolve because it has to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool. I think that's interesting to see the technology evolving both at home and in studio. So it's going to be, like you said, kind of just up to, the people doing the project, what they want to do eventually. I think it'll be to that point where they can get just as good quality at home as if they brought you guys all into the, the studio. It's awesome to hear too.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right. So the next thing we got to talk about is you do a lot of TV shows, as we talked about. And like I said before, we normally focus on games here, but I got to talk to you a little bit about being able to play multiple different characters in Spider-Man, one of my favorite superhero, just in general. But you've got to play the bad guys. You've got to play Spider-Man. Tell me what it's like voicing such an iconic character and how you deal with like the pressure of inhabiting a role that millions of people are going to see as the genre kind of ages and people get to look back on their Spider-Man. You're going to be that for somebody. So how do you feel about that? And maybe if you can at the end, kind of tell us how you got into the Spider-Man role.
Well, basically for Spider-Man, I went in confident because Spider-Man was like my favorite comic book character. Spider-Man was like one of the only comics I consistently read. And I felt very much like a Peter Parker growing up in school. I was not a cool kid in high school. I was a geek.
Let's stop it.
No, seriously, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was short. I was completely just scrawny. I liked science. I liked video games. I liked computers. Like I was the one. To show how old I am. Back in my day, yearbooks in high school, the old way, where it was on these big layout paper sheets and they would have to send it that way. Like there was no computer anything, no computer aided layouts or desktop publishing or anything like that for that. I was the one who basically transitioned the yearbook staff on the computer. I was the one who set up the computer lab at my school when the internet was new. Like that, I was that guy. I was like the tech guy. And sometimes I would eat lunch by myself in the computer lab because I had
nothing wrong with that.
And that's how I was. Yeah. And in high school, like basically what happens is that you're kind of you're pegged as a certain thing in like the beginning of high school, and that's who you are in high school. It doesn't really matter what you do to try to change that. Like if this is who you are as a freshman, that's how you're going to be through a senior for everybody in high school. Yep. So that's who I was. I was just not a cool kid. But at the same time, I was also, I had a whole different life outside of school, right. Doing acting, where I had a whole different group of friends who I didn't have that stigma with. I wasn't seen as like the not cool kid. I had a different group of friends. I was like a different person. Yeah. So when I was there, that was kind of where I got to be like Spider-Man in a weird way. But then at the same time, I always knew every day I was going to go back to school and get shit on. So it was that was my life, And so I really identified with the character of Peter Parker and having that kind of double life. and so yeah, I mean, when I went into audition for that, I was confident about it. Like I was like, I know this guy, and
Okay.
I've
I love
lived,
that story. I love
you know,
that.
and yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a stretch, and I understood the sandbox of the character because I had read so many comics. It was almost a similar story to when I did Anduin Rin for World of Warcraft. I played World of Warcraft, like played the game since the beginning, since 2010. And they didn't really make Anduin a bigger character until the Mists of Pandaria expansion,
Right.
which, several years into the game. But I knew this place. I knew Azeroth. I knew all of the places they were talking about. I knew all the characters they were talking about. I knew their relationships. I had like visual memories of like if they were talking about South Shore. I remember going there and like ganking people and
Jeez.
trying not to get ganked. I remember like
Don't let me find out you killed me in Warcraft. I will have to end this interview pretty quick.
I mean, I remember the trees I'd have to hide behind. I remember like the inn I would have to go into and run to the bottom to go recover some health or whatever. Like I remember I had visual
Yeah.
memory, knew the twists and turns I had to go. Like, so it's like I definitely knew these characters. That being said, there's other characters where I haven't felt that confident. Like with Green Lantern, I didn't know a lot about Green Lantern because I never really read Green Lantern before I got the role, and I had to do some creative ways of researching.
Okay.
So I mean, there were so many Green Lantern things to go through. I didn't even know where to start. And I had a buddy of mine who was like a huge Green Lantern fan, but I couldn't tell him that I was going to be Green Lantern because I was under NDA.
Yeah.
So I had to be like, "Yo, dude, somebody sent me like a Green Lantern thing, and it's pretty cool, man. Hey, if I want to get into this, like, what should I look at?" And he got so excited. He's like, "Oh, dude, you got to check this out." He sent me like a whole list of stuff,
Oh man.
and so that's how I researched that. But I'd say the most nervous I ever got about a role was Steve Rogers in What If, because I didn't know that was going to be MCU canon. I didn't know that. Like when I auditioned for it, they just said they wanted kind of like a Chris Evans sound alike. So I and they gave a little bit of reference audio when I went in. I did the audition from here at my studio, and it wasn't and I did the job. It was any other job. I've done voice matching for different people, so it was I didn't really think much about it. And it wasn't until later when it was about to come out that they said, "This is MCU canon, by the way." I was like, "Oh my God." Because I know how MCU fans are.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like one of 4 people that were not the original cast coming back. I think it was me, it was Chris Evans, it was Dave Bautista, it was Scarlett Johansson, and Tom Holland. I think everybody else was from the movies. So I was like, they're going to like skin me alive because Chris Evans, and that's like, he's Cat.
Yeah.
But it was what it was, and I the feedback that I got was positive. So like I didn't feel bad about it. Everybody was super super welcoming. The fans were super nice. I got like one of 2 things. They either said I didn't know it was Chris until I saw the credit, or it wasn't Chris until I saw the credits, or I knew it wasn't Chris, but you sounded like Cap. So
There you go.
awesome.
You gotta like that, and I love the way you approach that. I'm starting to, as we kind of get back into doing our interviews here, we're starting to hear that a lot is people that are having to either reprise roles that weren't voiced by them previously, or roles that just didn't have any speaking before. We talked to a voice actor who was the voice for the Doom guy.
Yeah, that was Matt.
Didn't speak before, and he had the same kind of mindset that you were saying. You just got to do it, and one way or the other, you're the character now. Whether people love it or hate it, you're that character. And I think the all of the different roles that you have, you obviously have a incredible range to be able to voice these characters. Absolutely. And I don't think I've heard one character from you that I didn't automatically like. So you got something good going there in the voice toy box. Ronan, you want to take the next one, sir?
Absolutely. Since we're talking a little bit about the animated series stuff, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Netflix reboot of Voltron. As, as you were the voice of Shiro, or Space Dad, as some people like to refer to. So,
people called me Space Dad before Voltron.
Really?
That was actually the first person they called Space Dad was Hal Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Because they kind of looked at Hal and Kilowog as like the parents, and Razor and Aya as like the kids, and that they were like the parents protecting Aya from the bad boy Razor. So yeah, they called me Space Dad from that first.
Oh wow.
And then I did an interview like at the very, very beginning of like when Voltron had come out, where people, one of the questions was, what did you do to get into character? And I said, well, I kind of brought up my own kids because I had just had kids. We had just had kids. I didn't do much of the work of having them, not raising them. But so what ended up happening, basically what I said was something along the lines of, I've never really been in the situation that Shiro's in, but the only thing that I can relate it to would be the fact that as a father, as a dad, I am completely responsible for the lives of these humans. Like that responsibility all falls on me. And, even though Shiro's not their dad, he's kind of responsible for them. And he's the one that's kind of in the position of leadership where he has to kind of take charge and be the one that takes care of everybody. And their lives are kind of in his hands, for better or for worse, or for whether or not that, he is up to the task. He's got to find that way to do it. I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure it wasn't exactly like that, but I mean, that's pretty much what I said about Shiro. And that kind of renewed the space dad thing.
I think it still fits overall when you think about what Shiro meant to the squad as a whole.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how things sort of played out up until the end of the series for sure. I'm kind of curious though, like obviously there was a Voltron that existed before this one, of course, and
yes,
as somebody who was growing up around a lot of adults as a child, I was referred to by that old series by my mom, who used to watch that back in the day. So it kind of led me into getting into this one to see what the new reboot was all about. But was there any sort of like during the process and production, was there any references back to that in terms of characters or any sorts of personalities or anything like that during the?
Well,
the
I got kind of lucky because in the '84 one, Shiro was Sven. And so that was a totally different character. Now Sven did make an appearance in Voltron Legendary Defender in one episode,
right?
But they were pretty clear from the beginning that Shiro was not going to be Sven. So I felt like I had a lot more freedom to kind of help contribute to how the character turned out. Going back to the other characters that we were talking about, like Spider-Man or Green Lantern or Captain America, the Chris Evans version. There's certain sandboxes that you kind of have to stay in. When you're playing these characters that are already pretty defined. Like especially like I'd say the strictest sandbox would be like Chris Evans Captain America, because it's not just any Captain America, it's this performance of Captain America, this version that you have to kind of stay true to. Whereas Green Lantern or Spider-Man, if it's not specifically matching somebody's performance, if it's just that character, you have a lot more freedom, but you still have to stay in a certain sandbox. You can't take too many liberties, otherwise it's no longer Peter Parker, otherwise it's no longer Hal Jordan. Whereas with Shiro, like it was kind of like the sky's the limit. It's like anything goes at that point. Like they were saying it's not Sven, so this is kind of what he's about. Within that, do what you want to do with it.
That's awesome.
So
yeah. I think
cool.
the performance and the freedom definitely showed throughout the entirety of that series, which I definitely enjoyed for sure. One of my favorite reboots on Netflix, without a doubt.
Well, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem.
We really enjoyed doing it. It was a really fun show. We all still miss it.
Yeah.
Man, that's a shame. It's interesting, that you get to play these iconic characters. Everybody has heard of it. If they don't know it, they've heard of Voltron, Peter Parker. Was it the Green Goblin or the Hobgoblin that you played for?
It was Norman Osborn.
Okay, the Captain America. So many different kind of characters. Do you have a preference on good guy versus bad guy?
Well, I mean, everyone's the good guy in their own story. So the bad guys, they think they're doing great.
As far as the acting goes, though, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I kind of approach everything in its own way. Like, you still got to find the same thing. You can't just like play the guy as an inherently good guy, because the good guy is still going to have their own struggles. Like what keeps them from being the bad guy. What stuff like you need to find all those notes. And with the bad guy, it's like, well, why is he doing this, and why is this? I mean, we see it as bad, but why does he think it's good?
Okay.
You still got to find. You got to answer basically the inverse of the same questions for each one. So it's still there. It's still fun either way.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So the next thing I want to talk about is it's kind of a combined subject. I want to talk a little bit about your time as Ocelot in Metal Gear. Again, we got a lot of Metal Gear fans here, but I also kind of want to cross this over into you also played a character in Death Stranding as well. Same director. Making these games with two totally different universes, and I want to start with Metal Gear. So you're coming in and you're playing Ocelot as a younger man, previously voiced by Mr. Zimmerman, who's just got this crazy, over the top way of playing Ocelot. And I'm not sure if you had heard any of it before. Before.
I had not.
Okay, so yeah, he's got this crazy, like, gruff, insane voice for Ocelot, because in at that point in time in the game, that's his character. But you get to play this kind of cool, laid back, younger version who is not quite in his comfortable in his shoes. He's using the wrong gun and that kind of thing. What was it like approaching a character in a game that had been getting so much hype and so much love in a time where video games, like you said before, were they were kind of for the nerdy kids, but now you're seeing these incredibly long works of art, acting, voice acting, all this stuff. What was it like going into voice a character like that in the genre at that time?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't going into it. I wasn't super familiar with the Metal Gear series at all. I mean, I was kind of starting out fresh. I knew the voice director very well, Chris Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Actually used to be married to Patrick Zimmerman. So basically I auditioned for it. She brought me in for it. And she basically told me he's really cocky. Like, that's, kind of playing that.
That sounds exactly probably how she said it too. We interviewed her on our show. She's got that kind of attitude about her. I love it.
He's really cocky. And there's like a youthful exuberance to him. There's a lot of flair to him. And so, like you were saying, like he's still kind of awkward. He does use the wrong gun and he's still kind of figuring it out, but he's got a flair.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what he wants to be. He knows how he wants to present himself. He knows that he wants to be remembered, and he doesn't just want to be like every other run-of-the-mill soldier. And so there's a confidence in that, whether or not he's really necessarily earned that right to be that confident doesn't really matter. He's gonna be how he is. Yeah. And that's now that I see kind of the trajectory of what he becomes, like it was fun to kind of be that stepping stone in terms of his character.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it. And one other thing we got to talk about. I looked through our old interview, and we didn't somehow bring this up. I think maybe we touched on it a little bit, but it wasn't a topic. And I just recently played it last night, Metal Gear Solid 3. My girlfriend wanted to kind of see what the hype was, and I've been begging her to watch me play so she can kind of understand the story. And we got to the part where you have the infamous Meow. So tell me about, do you recall recording that and kind of what it was like doing that?
I think I just did like one take of it. But yeah, I mean, it was just was just in the script? That wasn't like an improv thing. It was just improv. It was in the script. It was like, I was like, okay. and I mean, when you see something like that, you don't really know how to approach it, because it's like, is it supposed to sound like badass and fierce? But how badass and fierce can you make a meow? Like, it was a weird thing.
When I heard it last night, I said I've got to ask him just about that. Have you gone back and listened to it?
Yeah.
So they gave you they definitely gave you some like reverb effect on there, but overall, I can, we had talked to you before, and when I'm playing that, I got the controller and you do the meow, and I'm like, babe, I interviewed this guy. I'm gonna be talking to him tomorrow about this meow. So that's pretty interesting, and that's a great point for us to transition when you're talking, Ocelot and this odd character, like you said, with the different level of confidence. Did you see any of that in your role in Death Stranding? Do you recall anything odd or different about the way it was recorded, or anything with the script that seemed different than some of your normal stuff?
No, that was pretty straightforward. I want to say that with Death Stranding, they had already, I think they had the scene already visualized, mocap.
Okay.
So basically, kind of chasing the animation for that. That was almost that almost felt like a dub, even though they still hadn't done all of the mouth movements and stuff.
Okay.
So they were animating that after what I did. But the motion, I think, was kind of they had kind of a rough idea of that. So there were some of those moments already there that I just kind of had to give sound
Okay.
to.
And the last part is, so we've interviewed just about every voice actor from Metal Gear, and we started out, we talked to David Hayter and Paul Eiding about the original Metal Gear being recorded in this like house on the side of like a road, and they had to keep recording because like dump trucks would drive by, and they had like they had some art and some pictures and stuff like that. Then we learned, after that, the success of that game for Metal Gear Solid 2, they were reacting and doing their voices to like the WAV files of the Japanese actors. And one of our viewers here and friends of the show, Cheyenne, she had a question about the actual physical recording of Metal Gear Solid 3. What did you have to record to? Did you have picture, video? Did you just have the script? Like, what was the actual physical recording process like for that game, if you can recall?
It was just the script. That's it. That's all we had to go off of. I mean, I'd seen a picture of what Ocelot was going to look like, and I think he was kind of doing his iconic, pose, or whatever. But it was really just that. Like, I didn't really have a lot of. It wasn't like a dub. It wasn't like we already had the visuals. We weren't matching any Japanese performance or timing. It was really just the script.
And I'm assuming Chris was in there, like feeding lines for you, that kind of thing. Okay, so it's pretty normal for that one.
Yeah, she would read it with me. So she would read opposite me if it was Snake or whatever. She would fill in that performance, and it was.
If we ever get her back, I gotta have her do her version of Snake.
She didn't actually try to do. She didn't try to do she didn't do that.
The gravelly voice.
Okay, there you go.
She wasn't being gravelly, Chris.
Very cool. Well, I thank you for. I appreciate you answering that long question there, Ronan. You're up next, sir.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Horizon Zero Dawn, and for those who don't know, you're the voice of Avad the Sun King in Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. Just trying to avoid spoilers about Forbidden West because I haven't finished that.
I've been calling it Horizon Zero West. God,
I mean, I noticed it. I didn't want to say anything just yet because you were in thought.
Forbidden one.
It's fine.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah. So, but can you?
My brain is mush. Ever since you have kids, your brain just kind of turns.
But can you tell us a little bit about how you landed that particular role, what the process was, like the auditioning and stuff like that to get that particular role?
Well, I didn't have to audition obviously for the second time because it was the same guy.
Right.
But for the first one, it was a pretty standard thing. Like we get these auditions sent to us on our email, and it varies how much they actually tell you about it. Sometimes they'll give you a drawing or like a picture or something that the character is going to look like. Other times they'll give you kind of like stock photography, or like a picture of a different celebrity for like inspiration, which is what. And sometimes you get nothing. I want to say that for this, they actually had a picture of him. And Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't a known thing yet, so maybe they said the name. Like, they've gotten a lot more secretive with this stuff. Like now, like they'll have like, I don't know, Project Peaches or Project Peanut Butter or
weird code
they
names.
got code names for it.
R25 or some weird thing. And I really think it does like a disservice. It's like if we've already signed an NDA, then we're not going to say anything.
Right.
But it really does help for us to know what we're auditioning for. Right. Like obviously, given the exact same sides are what they call the audition materials, the script. given the exact same sides, if I know that I'm auditioning for something like Borderlands, I'm going to play that a lot differently than if I'm auditioning for something like, I don't know, what's the like, I don't know, like Viva Pinata or something like.
Okay, so yeah, something completely different.
Yeah.
Approach to even the same words. I mean, I know that Viva Pinata would just be gibberish sounding like one. No, I think they actually had dialogue in that game. But,
Animal Crossing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
There you go.
it'd be different. It'd be different. So like knowing what, especially if you play these games and are more familiar with a lot of these franchises and properties, like it would definitely help out in terms of like just getting to that place in the read for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we
But
talked.
yeah, so that was just a very normal audition where got the script, recorded it from my booth back there, and sent it in. I want to say, I don't even know if there was a callback or if they just hired off of that audition.
Oh wow.
And because I don't think I did mocap for the first one. I don't think there was mocap for the first one, at least for.
I don't recall seeing him do a whole lot of movement in that first one at all. So I guess that would make sense. Yeah.
But for the second one, yeah, I did go in and do some mocap.
Yeah. It kind of speaks volumes though, because it's like I didn't know that was you doing his voice until the credits rolled on the first game and I saw your name next to Avad's name and I'm like, holy crap, that was Josh. But I also, like, looking back on it now, like I've noticed for a lot of games, especially recently, like, you can almost tell a lot of the facial features in performance capture of specific people. They'll either use their entire face or features from their face, and you can kind of see that in the characters. Yeah. And I noticed that with Avad, that there are some features in his face that is basically one-to-one with yours. So it kind of makes sense now, seeing that now.
I mean, it's a complete face scan of me as Electro in Spider-Man PS4. Like that's my face.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
See, I had no idea.
It just looks like me with electrical burns.
That's crazy. Yeah,
I'm gonna be sure to check that out. I got that game. The game's on the way. Let me check that out when it gets here.
Yeah, absolutely. I still have to finish Forbidden West, so there's still a lot of stuff in that game that I haven't seen to ask anything particular about just yet.
All right, so my last kind of question for games. I got a couple of more questions for you. This one's the last character question I have, and I felt we kind of have to talk about it, considering the stuff that you do in World of Warcraft with your streams and stuff. We got to talk about Anduin a bit. So, like you mentioned before, it's a character that it's a long kind of standing character. Like if you play Classic, you get to see him as a boy. And tell me what it's like voicing a character so like repeatedly that you kind of become that character. Like when we think of this character now and we hear his voice, we think I think of you. So what's it been like continuing on with a character as opposed to something that you just play for one game and then that's done and it moves on to either the next person or maybe the game doesn't even have a sequel. This is kind of like a live service that they are going to have you constantly voice this child to man now, and you're in the Hearthstone and all of that stuff. What's it been like kind of being able to just be Anduin?
That's a totally different case, and it's weird, like, because the fact that it has literally gone on for so long and he's kind of almost aged in real time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's crazy.
It's weird. It's weird playing a character that literally feels like it has a life, like a real time life. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me because, I mean, my first character was an Alliance hunter. It wasn't really, I mean, it was cool. I liked taming pets and stuff like that. But then I switched to Horde and I became a druid, and I really love playing druids. And so I was like a Horde druid for a really long time. And so my first real dealing with Anduin was like trying to attack him in Stormwind. Angry that I couldn't attack this character, and then I end up becoming him. But yeah, it's weird. Like I remember him as a boy, and I remember seeing him as kind of like this little teenager, and then I took over his voice when he was like a little bit kind of mid-teens, and then and now I'm voicing him as he finds his way into being a man. It's crazy. It's crazy just being part of his history. And it feels like he has a history because it's gone on for like literal human years. And you've, like I said, like with a game like that that's got such a big world, a lot of the important moments in his life have not only corresponding music, a corresponding location in a living, breathing world that you could go and visit.
Right.
You could go to the place where like his father died. You could go to the place where he discovers where his father dies. There's a quest where you pick up the thing that reminds him of the thing. Like there's so many details that all tie together, and you can experience that character even as not the actor playing the character.
Right.
So to be the actor playing the character and have all of those things that I can now kind of go into. I mean, it helps build the character and on my end as well, because like I said, I can walk into Stormwind and walk around and say, this is all mine. That's my statue, and
right, there you go. This is just my statue here. Check it out.
It's all mine.
This has a couple of tailing questions. So the first one is, has this character become something maybe different from, like I said before, like a one-off character where the director comes to you and say, okay, this is the character you're playing. Now you've been this character for so long. Do you ever find yourself being like, okay, maybe he wouldn't say it like this, he might say it like that, or maybe the dialogue would sound better if I said this way?
Sometimes, but I mean, I feel like they get Anduin pretty well.
Okay.
I feel like they do a good job with his dialogue.
So you guys are on the same page then as actor and director.
Like Christy Golden does a lot of the supervisory stuff for Anduin, and she really gets the character. I did a reading for the audiobook for Before the Storm, which was a novel that she wrote, and it's so many beautiful scenes in that book. There's a bunch of great scenes with him, and basically the guy that raised him, like his Alfred Will,
right,
is like his it's his like valet kind of, but it's almost like a father figure to him, in some ways even more so than someone like Gen. And there's a lot of great scenes with him. Just she does a really, really good job with his optimism, and with his optimism that a lot of times is a little bit too naive and gets him into situations. And but still, even through that, his desire to still want to see the good in people.
Yeah.
And I feel like they do a great job with his dialogue. So there really hasn't been a lot of stuff that I would have wanted to change for him. I did get to do some fun stuff in what is it?
The card game? Heroes of the Storm. Okay.
Where there's actually they did a lot more like quips, which were,
I was gonna say there's a lot more fun lines in there.
A lot of fun lines in there. So and there's not, I mean, Warcraft is so much of a more serious game for Anduin, so like it was really fun to try to like explore that more sassy side of Anduin.
Right.
I really feel like it's there, but in Warcraft, like, where does he ever get the chance to show it? He's always dealing with so much. There's so much on his plate, and there's so many like crazy things that he's got to deal with. Hold on, I'm just gonna adjust something on my Twitch.
No worries.
Yeah, I forgot to do this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was giving. I was hearing that there was an echo in my Twitch stream, and it's because there's always something that I have to like. I don't know. The Mac program for Twitch is weird. Like toggle that I have to toggle off and then toggle on. And if I don't remember to do it, then like it doubles for some reason. Even though like I never changed this setting, so it should never have to be changed.
Right.
We run into that all the time here. Everything's working good for one interview, and then we load up to do the next one, and it's
like we were gonna go on Skype, and then Skype didn't want to play with my webcam because I don't use a webcam. I use my Canon camera.
Yeah.
With, the program that lets you use it, but for some reason Skype on this new update says nope, we're not going to let you do that anymore. It's got to be a webcam. It's like screw off. Come on, man.
Yeah, all the time.
Right. So yeah, I think
Buy another webcam. Just come on.
I think you made a great point. It's fun to see you, like I said, voice this character from the teens into his adulthood. And I see what you say as far as the Heroes of the Storm. We had Quentin Flynn on a while back, who's Kale Foss, and he had the same kind of thing. He's like a very scary character as far as like being a bad guy, and then he gets to have all the fun. And I love to see that when voice directors and companies allow you guys to have some of your own fun there in the booth. So that's awesome to hear. Ronan, you want to take the whatever kind of questions you have before we get into the fan questions and stuff?
You know what I think? Because looking at this now, I just ran down to the bottom. I actually don't have any more. I just ran
Okay,
dry.
okay. Awesome. Well, we got some fan questions, I'm sure, and one I'd like to start off is something we ask all of our voice actors that come on the show, and that is tips for up and coming or aspiring voice actors. Our show is voice actor centric, so if you have like a recommendation on like a piece of equipment, or if you have a recommendation for how to do voice acting, we have things from like attend real life acting classes to
Yes.
eat a green apple before you record to get the smack
tack,
out of your
yeah.
mouth.
Yeah,
Stuff like that. What's your tip for anybody looking to get into this industry? And obviously not take any jobs away from you.
Hey, it's all a good competition, man.
There you go.
Acting classes and improv classes. Again, it's not enough to be able to like imitate this voice or do a funny voice or whatever. Like you need to be able to build like characters that are grounded and have multiple facets and can stay consistent in whatever situation is thrown at them. So you definitely want to take acting classes. You definitely want to take improv classes. Read out loud as often as possible. You don't get a lot of time in voiceover to really prepare at all. You're a lot of times given the dialogue in like 5 minutes, and you gotta perform it. So
Right.
faster you can get at taking words off the page and kind of bringing it to life, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah.
Sing as often as you can. Like even if you suck at it, like it's like yoga for your voice.
That's good advice.
It's the best thing you can do. Like it improves your breathing, it improves your pitch, it improves your ear, your timing. It's one of the best things you could do. Your range, just all kinds of stuff. So that in terms of equipment, I would say even more so. Look, you're going to be able to. The first thing that you need to address is your room. The room's
Yeah, I know that.
the most important thing, because you can have a mediocre mic in a well-treated room, and it's always going to sound better than like a $5,000 mic in.
Yeah.
It's just the mic can only do so much,
Right.
and the better the mic, the more of the room it's going to pick up. And if like even in the room that I'm in right now, I haven't finished all of my sound panels,
Yeah.
so it's still echoey in here. I mean, I have a carpet, I have bass traps here, but I have a flat wall here, a flat wall here, a flat wall behind that. Like there's still a lot of stuff that is just going to contribute to that echo, because this is a box.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at some of the more expensive studios, they'll actually have walls that are not parallel. The room will be a weird shape to help scatter a lot of those reflections, so that you don't have all of that echoing up your room.
Yeah.
You see, this is how I know you're a pro, okay? Because like you said, a lot of people will just think doing a voice and getting a high end mic is like the way to go. But you got to know your craft. You got to know about the walls and how sound reflects off of that if you want to get up in the big leagues where you're at. And
Mic is one of the parts. Like for the longest time, I was using a Rode mic, which is not even that expensive of a mic, and I was doing TV gigs with it, and
there you go.
I had a well-treated space, so it still sounded great. Now I have a Sennheiser 416. That's actually what I'm talking about right now. I have a couple of them. I have one in my booth and I have one here. And I travel with this one when I have to travel, and it's a shotgun mic. And shotgun mics are the long thin ones,
Yeah.
and those are good if you have a space that is harder to treat, because if it's a shotgun mic, it's only going to accept sound that comes right into it. It's going to reject stuff that comes out from behind it and all that. So it doesn't pick up as much of the room as like as like a car, not a cardiac, a large capsule, like a large capsule
Is
mic.
that kind of like what Ronan has here, or Al?
Yeah, Ronan's a
because
large
it's-
capsule.
Yeah.
That's going to pick up more of the room. And also those have different patterns. You're going to want cardioid pattern instead of the 360. And that's going to help you out a lot. but basically you're just going to want to limit those room reflections, treat the room. You know, a lot of voice actors before they had booths would read in closets, and that's actually a good thing because the clothes in there will help diffuse a lot of the sound, and you know, shelving and stuff will help scatter the echoes. A lot of closets are not squares, so that helps a lot.
Right.
So basically, like that's a good place to read from.
For sure. And I'm going to have to clip this section and send it to Tasia Valenza, our recording in the closet expert.
She records in the closet too. Yeah.
She records everything in the closet.
Yeah. There's like a lot of promo gigs. Like she works all the time. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for a closet. Like if you live in a place that's quiet, if you live in a place that, you know, isn't by a huge busy street, that doesn't have dogs barking outside, you know, if you don't have like a big air conditioning unit right on the other side of your wall, you're going to be fine. Like you can get by with a closet. The only time that you actually really need a booth is if you have to control for outside noise.
Okay.
Because you can get a room to sound fantastic, and it doesn't even have to be soundproof if you live in a quiet enough area. And that's going to be more important. That's going to be more important than the kind of mic you have, within reason. You know, try to stay away from USB mics, because then you're also like locked into, and when I say a USB mic, a mic that doesn't have a preamp, a separate preamp, because you also want your gear to be as modular as possible. You want to be able to upgrade certain pieces of it as your budget and, you know, as your budget allows.
Yeah.
So, you know, you start out with a good starter mic, a good starter preamp, and then when you start, you know, doing better and you start getting more work and you start making more money with your equipment, upgrade that preamp, keep the other stuff as a backup, or sell it and upgrade your preamp, upgrade your mic as time goes, and you'll constantly be, you know, upgrading little pieces of it, upgrade your interface. I like to have a separate mic, preamp, and interface, but there are a lot of good interfaces that have built-in preamps that are not super expensive. The Scarlett's good. For a starter preamp, a starter interface. A lot of people that I know use that. I think Matt Mercer still uses that. Matt Mercer's all over the place. Yeah. He still uses Scarlett. UA makes a nice new little one now. I have like overkill gear because I also do music. So for voiceover, my gear is way overkill. But you know, I'm also a gear guy, so I like it. I like having extra stuff. But I mean, there's SSL, who is known for making those big, huge consoles that they used to use all the time back in the day. They still make them. They make a much smaller one that's like a single channel strip, but it sounds fantastic. Yeah. It's not super expensive. I mean, ultimately, you're going to be shelling out a few $100 for each piece. Right. There are cheaper ways to go. I mean, Rode makes a good shotgun mic as well. You don't have to go and get a Sennheiser. When budget allows, if you want to get a Sennheiser, you know, you want to ultimately aim for the stuff that is like the industry standard. If you're going to be, if you want to really do voiceover seriously and work from home, you're going to want to use similar stuff to what they're going to use in the studio. So that's going to be either a Sennheiser 416 or a Neumann, either a TLM mic or a U87. U87s are crazy amounts of money. The TLM is a lot cheaper, but it's still like over $1,000. It's still very expensive. Or the Sennheiser, you can get them for like brand new for between $800 and $900. But that being said, Sennheiser sells B stock, which functionally is exactly the same as a brand new Sennheiser mic. It comes with the same warranty. It might just have like a little chip in the finish, and you for like $300 less. it's the same. Wow. That's like I buy their B stock because it's fantastic. You know, I don't care if it's got
cosmetic stuff, but internally just the same.
It's gonna get like that anyway from moving it around. Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's got the same warranty, same support, save the money, man.
Save the money. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but Rode makes good stuff. Those are good starter shotgun mics. Stay away from like the booth in a box stuff, like the thing that looks like a box.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
It just sounds like you're reading into a box of foam. They're not good. Yeah. You want to have space. You want to have space for your voice. You just don't want stuff to echo and come back to the mic. Right. So whatever you could do to kind of change up the geometry of the room a little bit, or absorb. You're probably going to get better with absorption. Yeah. And you can, I mean, there's plenty of tutorials on how to make your own sound panels if you're, you know, even moderately handy. You can save a lot of money. They also have foam. The foam is good. Depending on how big your space is. Like if you're in a small space, the foam works fantastic.
Yeah.
If you're in a big space, it's going to be a lot harder to control the stuff with foam. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you could do. Work on treating the room.
Yeah.
Treating the room is the most important thing.
All right, very good. I like that.
That's a lot of what he said kind of resonated with me as somebody who does a lot of streaming and YouTube content. Yeah. As somebody who, when I first got into this, did shell out quite a bit of money for equipment to do it as well.
You got better stuff than I do.
I mean, it all came down to like, okay, I have a great mic, but of course, the better quality mic, the more it picks up stuff around the room, right? So it made it very obvious to me that I need to get, like acoustic paneling and stuff like that of some form to get rid of some of the reverb in the room, because I have a lot of like large walls here that are just flat walls, and it picks up a lot of that sound. So a lot of
hardwood floors, also carpet.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of what he said, honestly, that could be taken for people who are getting into content creation on YouTube as well. It's actually really good advice for that too.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's good. I mean, if you're just streaming video games, it's still going to make sound better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very good. A lot of our community questions turned into just people telling us how much they like you, Josh. So I got a couple, but most of them like Cheyenne says you're epic, and the gaming nerd loves all your stuff. So we got a lot of fans over here. One of them asked a question that we asked a lot when we first kind of were getting into interviewing, but I'm going to rephrase it for him because I already know the answer. So he asked, would you ever return as Ocelot in Metal Gear Solid 3 in like a remake? And I'm sure you would.
Oh yeah.
Let's rephrase it to, if you were going to return as Ocelot in an MGS game, would you like to come back as like a younger Ocelot, or would you like to maybe try and tackle an older Ocelot? What's kind of, where are you at nowadays with
like
Ocelot?
Younger being like the age he was in 3? Yeah. I think that any younger would be a little weird.
Like, do you want to voice baby Ocelot?
That'd just be weird.
You're pretty good.
High school Ocelot. I mean, either or. Like coming back, and like if it was a remake, it would have to be the same.
Right.
And I'm older now, so it would be a little bit different. But
so we're gonna find out here in a minute, right?
I wouldn't mind coming back as the same.
Okay.
Or if he was older, I wouldn't mind that either. I mean, he's a fun character, so however I can play him again would be fine.
Yeah,
fine.
I think it would be interesting to see you as like maybe a little bit older, because we had Troy Baker come in and voice Ocelot for Metal Gear Solid 5, and he's kind of like not old yet, but not like super young. So I'd maybe like to see you do like an Ocelot in his like 30s, maybe mid or upper 20s, low 30s, somewhere around there. I think that'd be an interesting character, and I think you would fit that, like you said, as you're a little older now. It might sound more natural, and I think there's some space in the Metal Gear timeline for that kind of thing to happen. Sure. I'd like to actually, if I had to have you come back and do something, I'd like you to do like a audio book voiceover for like a rendition of Metal Gear Solid 3, or even some of the newer ones, 5, in an audiobook format. I think that'd be cool to hear you voice that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
All right, let me check here and see if we got any other ones. Ronnie, did you have any community questions come in?
No, not at the moment, only because this kind of popped up last minute, so I didn't get a chance to get people to give me questions.
Fair enough. Here we go. This one comes from the gaming nerd. He wants to know if you were allowed to. Oh, hold on. Let me reread this. Okay, I was reading the wrong part. Is there anything that you haven't had a chance to voice that you would like to, like any kind of big IP, any type of video game or like movie franchise that you'd like to be a part of that you haven't got to do yet? Maybe you're going to aim for in the future?
I wanted to be part of My Little Pony.
Stop it.
I would watch it with my wife. I'd watch it with my kids. But that's like a Canadian show, and I'm not Canadian. And so
okay.
To work on the show.
I figure that actually might be fun for you. You do a lot of like younger like age shows, like when my girlfriend's son finds out, because he's not here right now. When he finds out you're in Ben 10, I'm sure he's gonna love that.
I was watching it too. But My Little Pony is just fun. I think that version of it was really well written. Was it the Friendship is Magic? That was a really, really well written version of the show. Very, very funny, really good performances all across the board. And yeah, no, that would have been super fun. That would have been super fun, but I never got a chance because I'm not Canadian. I mean, honestly, in terms of like other stuff, I'm not really sure. I mean, I would love to be in a Borderlands game because I love the game. I love the world. Like that's a game that my wife and I the series that we consistently play.
It's good.
Very cool.
It's really good.
And I would love to be in one of those. What else?
If I can say, something when I look through your IMDb, and I know they're not always 100% accurate, so you can correct me if I miss something, but I'd like to see you in a horror game. Like I don't see enough horror games in your repertoire. And I feel like you have the voice to either play a bad guy or to play one of these characters that's like the odds are kind of stacked against them. You've got that tone where I think it would be really fun to find you in a horror game, something like Outlast or something.
Outlast or like a Resident Evil. I'd like to hear him in a Resident Evil.
Honestly. I would love to be in a Resident Evil. Like that was actually like one of my favorite game series when I was let's see. I bought a Dreamcast.
Hey, all right, nice.
It was going to be like a system exclusive to that in the beginning. I was like, I gotta get a Dreamcast. I gotta get a Dreamcast. And I ended up loving a bunch of other games on that Dreamcast anyway. But I mean, yeah, that and then 1 and 2. I mean, I remember playing the original Resident Evil on PlayStation,
right?
And just like I loved the early ones. Like once it became like the whole town was infected. Yeah, I was just like, now this just feels like any other zombie movie. Right. Like the thing that really made it stand out for me was that feeling of being completely trapped inside this creepy ass mansion. Like that's with the secrets and like in Resident Evil where it's like that secret elevator and all like all of that was cool. once it became like just out in the town and like it wasn't the same to me anymore. Like part of the charm of the originals was being locked in the house.
I think that's why I liked Biohazard or Seven so much. That one was great, and I'm on board with you. And I also liked the kind of like B movie like dialogue that they had. It was fun.
Oh yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, so we got a petition to get Josh in a horror game.
The master of unlocking. Here's a lot.
Yeah.
Good at you, Jill, master of unlocking.
Thanks, Barry.
Yeah. The Jill sandwich.
Master of unlocking wouldn't she have a lockpick already? You know about this? Why are you mansplaining lockpicking to the master of lockpicking here?
Right.
What you say? Good. I got some extra lockpicks for you here. Sweet.
We're gonna have to have you on just to talk about games in general. It's tough to find voice actors who love games.
Like a pure nerd out episode.
A lot of them, obviously appreciate the medium that they work in, but not a whole lot play like you do. So it's fun to be able to talk about that with you. All right, so to wrap up, I'd like to give you a little chance to do some plugs here. Can you tell people where they can keep up with you? I know you mentioned you were streaming on Twitch. I didn't even know you did that. Regularly. I've seen some, like I said, some World of Warcraft stuff from you, but I didn't know that was like a regular basis. So let us know where we can keep up with you on social media and Twitch and all that kind of stuff. And if you have any projects that you can talk about that you'd like us to go look at, now's the time to tell us.
Okay. You can find me on Twitch. My Twitch name is Space Padre. That is also my Instagram name. On Twitter, I am just at Josh Keaton, no spaces. Let me see, on YouTube it's Josh Keaton as well. I have a Cameo, so if you want to have me got somebody in character or whatever, you can hit me up on Cameo, and that's cameo.com/Josh Keaton. What else I have a TikTok, that's the Josh Keaton, because somebody just had Josh Keaton.
Go figure.
Make me sound all
official.
There you go.
Official. Yeah.
The new thing though is to do not, and then you're yeah, that's the I see that trend coming out. Not
I've seen
this
that too.
person.
I've seen that too.
I got to do that.
All right, so what about? Yeah, I was gonna say, what about some shows and stuff or games?
In Dota Dragon's Blood, I play Bram in that show.
Yeah.
I am in Arcane. I play Deckard. I play Solo, and I play the Gorgeous Man. Let's see. I'm in a show called It's Pony, and I play Heston. That's on Nickelodeon. It's a fun kids show. And there's a few other things that I can't talk about yet, but you'll be hearing more about those. A couple shows and a big video game. So
Oh, nice.
Very good.
Okay.
Well, we're looking forward to that. When that comes out, we'll make sure to retweet that for you on Twitter. And I gotta say, maybe not take a 6-year hiatus before we talk to you again.
we got to talk a little more frequently. Sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll invite you on in 6 or 8 months or so after you have some stuff come out. Maybe
Yeah.
see what we can do.